here in Boston. I mean, everybody, the most powerful in the city, came. We had it all set up for after the game, and he would be there, and you couldn't believe it. I guarantee you it's like a king coming into court, the way that he was thought of in that city. People actually loved him. So anyway, we play the game. I make a big announcement in the middle of the field. You know, I did one of those things in the stands over here and in the stands over there. We are happy to be back and bringing pro football to America. This is your team. I felt like Kennedy. You know, the place was banged out, was sold out. In the middle of the league being in trouble, by the way, because they were beginning to announce the teams that were going out of business, but we were a fresh face, and it was opening night. We're playing the Memphis Southmen, and it was a big game. I think it was for first place, and the game went right down the wire. And our team, by the way, some of the people on our team, on the New York Stars, now the Charlotte, and they had, by the way, they had a big promotion for a week to name the team. And they came back to me and said most of the people voted for the Charlotte Hornets. Now, that was the name of the old semi-pro baseball team that was there. And I said, yeah, but I like it, the Charlotte Hornets. So eventually we had jerseys designed and everything. But anyway, the game goes down to the end. We lose it in the end, but people seem to really be happy. You know, they've got their own football team. Mm-hmm. Not the NFL, but they've got their own team. Afterwards, huge party. All of our Charlottean society showed up for this game, whether they like sports or not. And Palmer was there, couldn't have been better. You know, signing autographs for everybody, but really mixing. Now, he was part of the city because he would come in and play at the Quail Hollow Golf Tournament. So again, he was a person, and he went to Wake Forest. So it was an absolute great night. I actually got the coach of the champions, Norm Sloan, who was the head coach of David Thompson's team, North Carolina State, who had beaten UCLA. I get his wife to sing the national anthem. Charlie Choo Choo Justice, who was a legendary figure in North Carolina, and All-American and in the NFL. He came up. I mean, I had more celebrities. So I said, who the hell needs the White House? I got a better reception than they do. I mean, it was a magnificent night. And Luther Hodges came, all of the most powerful people. The North Carolina National Bank was, and we say today what it's turned into. All of their people were there. So we had a great night. A lot of investors, maybe future investors came. And then, of course, the next day, great stuff in the paper. But the reality then, next day, sunk in that, okay, now I've got to get to work and find investors to pay Smarts off, but also to establish the team, and I had a payroll coming up.
You had, glamorous business, television, entertainment business, glamorous business, pro football. You had a problem when you were down there immediately. Let's get the logos on the helmets, get them off the helmets, put the Chicago C on it before we come up with a logo for the Hornets.
Yeah. Well, and actually, I mean, there's so many things involved that had to happen quickly. And all I could think of back, by the way, during this whole period this year is as a boy, not totally understanding it, how my father must have had to struggle. With the NFL, going back, from the 20s when it was founded, 100th anniversary today, but basically by the time he got in 1933, 20 teams had already failed. So I was thinking about those early days and living in the house with players and living in hotels with players and trying to survive. His father, one of the richest people in Philadelphia, would have nothing to do with the pro team. It was all college. And I thought, maybe, am I reliving all over again what he went through? But yet in the end it made it. And that's kind of the only thing that made it going, because the real reality is teams were failing. This was 1974, wasn't 1920. and a lot more is at stake. We're fighting the NFL. Zonka, Kick, and Warfield have been signed into the league. A lot of other big stars have been signed in, but they weren't due to come in the next, till the next year. But I had to raise the money, and within 2 weeks, we had to have, the payroll, and we made a lot of money on that game. But an interesting sidelight, again, comedic, almost movie-like. 2 weeks later, we were playing the Shreveport Steamer in Shreveport. I decided not to go to the game because I had business in Charlotte. And my assistant general manager, I said, "You've got everything, take care of it down there." So at halftime, I get a call. I'm listening to the game. It's a close game. And he called and he said, I've got to tell you something. He said, before the game, the locker room was surrounded by sheriff's deputies. And the sheriff, like right out of the Dodge commercial, remember the sheriff in the Dodge commercial? And the sheriff said he should call the game off, but he'll let us play the game. But at the end of the game, the locker room will be surrounded by deputies, and they want all of our uniforms back. I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, Smirts in New York owed a huge cleaning bill to this company worth like $30,000 or more, and they had sent a court order and a representative down to Shreveport to take the uniforms away." Now this is the guy I'm supposedly going to be a partner with that I've got to pay off, and he can't pay his bill in New York or refuse to do it. So the lawyers there, unbeknownst to any of us, send the surrogates down there with a writ to the sheriff to take the uniforms away.
So you have to relinquish dirty football uniforms because of an unpaid laundry bill for a pro team that you're starting, and the bill has to be paid for a debt that's in New York,
right?
And you're trying to get a team underway and looking for investors.
So right out of the movies, it's like Smokey and the Bandit.
Buford T. Justice.
Is that? So I said, "Look, as soon as the game's ended, is there a back way out?" I said, "Get those uniforms on the bus and get them the hell out of there." So essentially, they tried to do that, except they were surrounded like Butch and Sundance. There was no way. They take the uniforms, and now, of course, you don't want bad publicity. That makes in the papers in Charlotte and everywhere. The Charlotte Hornets won the game but lose their uniforms. Can you see? Can you see the headlines? So they take the uniforms, and now I've got to figure out how to get them back because we have a game in a week. So finally, we make some type of deal to lay off, and at the end of the year, I'll figure a way to settle with them. We get the uniforms back, play the game. We're right now, I think, in second place and with a chance to go to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is, never happened before, John Bassett and Davidson, a couple of people in the league committee, called me and said, "You're out of the playoffs." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, we don't think maybe you'll have the uniforms in time, but the other thing is, can you afford to pay for the flights to the playoff areas?" I said, "Right now, no." So we were the only team that was in second place, one of the top teams in the league, and we're out of the playoffs because we couldn't afford to go to all the different sites, and we had to get the uniforms back.